Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a long while, but we're back and I'm happy to have another guest on this channel who happens to be my mom. So she's going to introduce herself, but of course she's a mom of three and a grandmother of how many
Three.
grandchildren? Three grandchildren. And she has many years of experience as an educator and more importantly as a special needs educator consultant. Did I get the description right? So let me so basically that's what we're going to be talking about, special needs education. Let me allow her introduce herself and tell us a bit about your profession.
Okay, yeah, well, my name is Patricia Modupe Tioluwani. Yes, I've been in the education adventure, I call it an adventure, for over 3 decades now. I'm an educational administrator. I am a consultant presently, and I'm a special needs therapist and also an advocate. I advocate for children who are living with disabilities. So that is about myself and the work that I do. I consult for schools. I support school growth. I do a lot of training for teachers because I believe even if you have a fantastic curriculum or whatever you have, infrastructure, you still need trained hands, passionate hands to execute your dreams, your visions, and actually have an impact on the children. So I specialize in training teachers, and I also support schools in their journey towards becoming an inclusive school that can cater for the needs of children with special needs, special education needs.
All right, thank you so much. So, we're going to try to move as fast as we can because this topic is really, it can be
It's
very
broad.
broad and very wide, and we can just go on and on. If we have to, do a second video, we will do that once I see that this video is getting too long. So, but this conversation will be in three parts. The first section of our discussion will be about identifying needs and seeking help. The second part is about misconceptions and getting support. And then the third part will be common mistakes and moving forward. So I'm just going to go right into the questions, and feel free to give us practical examples from your experience. So the first question is, what are some of the early signs that might indicate that my child has special needs? So, for example, I mean, today if you go online, everybody is saying that they are therapists. They will tell you if your child is jumping too much, if your child is screaming, if your child, and a lot of people are confused. Is this not normal behavior? I mean, it seems like all toddlers do these things. So how do I also know that this type of behavior is, is
Of
different from,
concern. Mm.
yes, or is something of concern?
Early signs can start as early as 2 months, 3 months for a vigilant parent. Now, the difficulty with identifying learning needs is in the fact that there are no specific concrete signs. For example, autism is a spectrum. And when we say a spectrum, it means that it manifests, it shows in different ways for each child. So what research has given on to us and is still going on, there are common signs that have been observed over years. So early signs for a baby could be that the child has no eye contact with the parent. Obviously, the mother is always the one who will first notice these things. No eye contact. The baby does not coo. By 3 months, your child should begin to make some baby sounds, cooing. If your child is not making that sound, you need to do more observation and begin to get concerned. Now, because when children are early, when children are very young, the signs might not be so obvious. And that is why usually a child will be around 6 months, 1 year, 2 years before parents can actually say, oh, I think there's something wrong. It could be that the child does not lift its head. A baby does not lift its head by 3-4 months. You need to be watchful. Does not who make noises and does not have eye contact. That eye contact is a very strong indication that something is wrong. If a baby is breastfeeding, naturally the child should be looking straight into your eyes, looking at you. If that doesn't happen, you should begin to get concerned. And then much later on, what you look out for is if my child is not meeting the milestones, those regular milestones. At what age is the baby sitting? At what age does the baby start cooing, or maybe there's no cooing at all? Can your child point at an object? Does the child appear to react to noise or certain sounds or light? If there are irregular reactions to these things, you need to start getting concerned. So those are the very early signs when a child is still a baby. You just need to note them and you need to take certain steps.
Yes. So, speaking of steps, what steps should I take, for example, if I'm concerned that my child needs extra support? So maybe I've noticed the child being uncomfortable when there's noise or is not making eye contact. Where do I go from there?
The first thing to do is to see the pediatrician, because you cannot isolate those signs and make a judgment, a conclusion on your own. And even we therapists, we should not do that. So even when you see those signs, it's good to get professional judgment, professional advice. So you need to go to the pediatrician, and we therapists always advise the earlier you go. When you see signs or the child is not meeting milestones, the earlier you go, the better for yourself and the child, because early intervention brings out a lot of wonderful outcomes and brings it early. So the first step is to see the pediatrician for a diagnosis, for analysis, and let's know what is going on.
Thank you. So, can you now walk us through the process of getting a child evaluated? You mentioned that the first step is to see a pediatrician. So, what comes after that? And then, what is the process of the child getting evaluated by a specialist, a therapist? Like, what are the steps that the therapist would take?
Right. If there has been early observation and a visit to the pediatrician will ask you to further take note of certain things. And if those things are confirmed, the diagnosis can come. There will be referrals and a diagnosis can come. Usually, most people are unable to get a diagnosis early enough. It usually comes around 3, 4, or even later in the age of the child. So once there's a diagnosis, we need to know what are the specific symptoms or behaviors the child is exhibiting that are of concern. Number one, maybe the child is 2 years old and the child is non-verbal. That is, the child isn't speaking, the child is not bringing out words, or are they just words, no sentences? And then when we talk of behavior, Are there repetitive behaviors that you find annoying? You know, the child is repeating certain behavior. It could come up at an unusual time or even when you are out in public. Or is it social skills? Maybe the child, you have observed that the child is always playing alone, or the teacher in school reports that, let's say, Toby uh, does not join in when there are group activities. So there's isolation. And then it could be sensory behavior, sensory reactions. Some children react to light, some react to noise. Certain sounds, you see them, they cover their ears, they can cover their eyes, you know. So we identify specific behaviors, and then we try to help the child to get over those challenges, you know. And if they are cognitive, for example, uh, in the class, let's say everybody can already read R to Z, and this child is still on R for 6 months, for 1 year. So the therapist would come in and use certain strategies to help support the child. So from the pediatrician, we get a referrals, we get a diagnosis, and then we identify the specific behavior. What are those things you are observing as a mother, as a parent, as a teacher, that are not the regular behaviors, regular responses, or falling short of milestones? So the therapist works on those areas.
Hmm. Thank you. While we were talking, I just remembered one of the stories that you shared about a family that had a daughter that I think she said she wasn't speaking,
Yeah.
and they later found out that she couldn't hear.
Yes.
So let's talk about that and just
Yes, the teacher actually, this child was new in the school. So the teacher came to me as the head of school and said, Ma, we're concerned about this little girl. The girl was almost 3 years old at that time. And I said, what is the problem? She said that the child does not respond to her name. That's another thing a parent ought to notice as early as a year. You know, the child does not respond to her name. In fact, the child does not respond to anything. You talk to her, there is no response, there is no reaction, and that particular child also will not eat in class. So I told the teacher we need to test to be sure in-house. Let's be sure that this child can actually hear us. So what I did was I stood behind the child and I made a very loud noise, and there was absolutely no reaction. And I told the teacher, I said, okay, let's say the child is feeling a bit drowsy. I asked her to try it again and let me know. So there was absolutely no reaction. So with that, as an experienced therapist, I suspected there was issue with the ears of the child, hearing challenges. And I invited the parents and I, told them that this is what we're experiencing in class. And I asked them, what have you experienced at home? And they said nothing, that they felt that the child is just in a world of her own. It's true, she does not respond when they call. So I said, okay, so why don't we just take the child to the pediatrician and check? They were very reluctant. They were like, no, Mrs. Toluwani, our daughter is very playful. She doesn't talk, but we just feel she's slow. She's taking her time. She's in a world of her own. So I left them for about 3 weeks and I gave them a feedback and I said, just take her and confirm. That was the language I used. I said, confirm that her ears are okay. So after a little more pressure, they took the baby to the hospital. And surprisingly, after the visit, because I really monitored them, after the visit to the doctor, they kept the child away for 3 days. So I had to call, hello, how are you? How is our baby? What is happening? And then the mother broke the news to me on the phone that they were absolutely devastated because the result came out that the child was almost completely deaf, had serious hearing impairment in both ears. So this is why we always talk to parents, be vigilant, and don't just say, oh, my child is just quiet, my child is in a world of her own. Be sure that everything about the child, the senses are okay. So for these parents, for the 3 years of their daughter's life, she was not responding, and they just felt she's in a world of her own, she'll get over it. And they said, in fact, that's why they brought her to the school. They felt that with social interaction, she'll begin to play with friends and speak. But lo and behold, 3.5 years, the child was diagnosed with serious hearing impairment, and that also affected her speech. She was nonverbal. So she couldn't hear and she could not talk.
That's very interesting, and I can only imagine what the parents, must have felt
They were devastated.
at that point, finding out that your child is, either partially deaf or completely deaf. It must have really been a tough
Yes, it was.
realization for them, and it just makes me think of. I think part of the issues that also makes it difficult for parents to find these things out is our medical system. For example, when I had Feromi, they actually did a hearing test for her.
Immediately.
Yes, in the hospital. I think it was the second day. So, I mean, except if something comes up later, right now I know that okay, she can hear. But for Fega back in Nigeria, there was nothing like
no
that.
test.
They just check all the physical and say, okay,
most of the time in Nigeria, they just make sure the child is breathing.
Yes.
Once the child is breathing and moving.
Yeah, and you're discharged. So I think and they do a whole lot of other tests, and they make you go for scans even after the baby is born. And I think that helps. To have that at the beginning, really, really helps.
Yes. Like that family, if they had known at birth, I'm sure something would have been done. Because at 3.5 years old, of course, the child had to be given hearing aid. At 3.5 years old, suddenly having something inserted in your ears, it irritated her so much. So she came to school and she would just remove it and throw it away. So we had to spend time helping her to get used to the hearing aid. In fact, the first thing we also observed was that maybe the volume was too high, because whenever we placed it, she would scream. You could tell she could hear, but she would scream with discomfort. So I advised the parent, take it back to the doctor and tell them to please tune it down. And then we had a better response from the child. So even if a child needs to put on hearing aid, if it came on as a baby, it would have been better tolerated. Yes.
That's right. And it's good that you were able to also spot that it could have been too loud, because I can imagine going from not hearing to hearing something
too loud.
so loud.
Yes.
That would be very
uncomfortable for the child.
Okay, so now let's go to we've gone through the process of getting evaluated. What are some other resources available for parents with children with special needs? They're like support groups, online resources that parents can use at home when their therapist is not.
When you talk of support groups in Nigeria, well, with advocacy, it's scanty, is almost non-existent in Nigeria when you talk of support groups online, because in Nigeria, the initial reaction of parents to children with special needs is either denial, complete denial that no, it cannot be my child. Oh no, it's just a child, nothing is wrong, he will get over it. So there's serious denial that, parents don't want to face this issue that there is a serious matter with my child. So even if a group is created and we invite parents, for example, we therapists came together at one time. We said, okay, we understand that parents who have children with special needs are going through so much emotional stress and financial stress too. So we invited them for a time out. Hey, mothers, why don't you come? Let's just have fun. Uh, put your child somewhere and just come and offload. Let's come together as a group. Let's say everything in our hearts. And funny enough, we spent our money. We booked a venue, a garden, we made food available, music available, and most of them did not show up. They did not come. So a lot of parents are not yet ready to step out and speak out, because of the stigma. Oh, if I step out, the whole world will know that my child has an issue, and some are embarrassed. Some just don't even know how to cope with it. So in terms of support groups, we are creating more awareness so that parents know that, look, you are not alone. This is not a death sentence. And this is not something to be ashamed about. We want parents to know that, look, you are the best advocate for your child. And the earlier you speak out and reach out to every available support, the better for that child. So support groups, well, they are coming up, but extremely scanty in Nigeria, and people don't want to identify with them. In terms of resources, most schools in Nigeria for now, some schools claim to be inclusive, but in practical terms, they are not. When they say they are inclusive, they just mean that, well, they admit children with special needs, but most schools they are not trained. The staff are not trained. They don't really understand these children, and they don't know how to meet their needs. So we are just having a few schools who have gone on the journey of inclusion and are getting resources and special hands to help. But for a parent at home, number one thing you can do to help yourself is find out what exactly is the issue with my child. For example, if it is a diagnosis of autism, you will do well to go on the internet or go for a course like Patrick's Speech Language Center offers a 3-month course. It's every Saturday, and it goes every Saturday for 3 months. And you can actually find out, what is this autism? What are the symptoms? What can I do as a parent? Who can help me? Where can I get help from? So as a parent, I advise that you need to actually study the particular challenge that your child has so that you are knowledgeable. You see the symptoms and you can actually support your child. We have always tried to let parents know that they are actually the best therapists and the best advocates of their children.
Okay, so I think we've moved on to another part of the discussion. So in terms of parents advocating for their children's needs, how can we go about, advocating for our children's needs in school?
Okay.
Like, how do I get my child's teachers to be on board with the whole support and everything?
Well, initially, like I said, it starts with yourself. Find out more, study more. If you need to go for a course, register for a course. Now, reaching out to the school. One of the things you need to do, you reach out to the head of school and also your child's teacher. Find out if they will allow you either to partner with you or any other organization to create awareness. The first thing is awareness. If just one special needs child is in a school, all the adults that will be interacting with this child, they actually need to know. They need to know, what are the challenges this child is having and how can I be of support at any time that I need to be with this child. It could be on the playground. If a special needs child is on the playground and a particular teacher is on duty and she's totally unaware. She could be, her reaction towards that child could be negative. She might just feel, oh, this child is naughty, this child is stubborn, this child is, because there's lack of awareness, there's lack of understanding, the reaction of the teacher might not be in the interest of that child. So I advise every parent, encourage awareness to be created in the school where your child is, and then give a personal support to the teacher. Be there to ask questions, questions like, hey, Miss, whoever the teacher is, what did we learn today? Find out what the child was supposed to be learning, and ask, what can I do at home to further support my child to learn so, 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 and so. And if, for example, there's something they are learning in school and you observe that your child isn't quite catching up, it's good to give the teacher early feedback. Oh, madam, so, 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 and so, thank you so much, well done. And it's good to be so nice. It's good to have a relationship, a good, healthy working relationship with your child's teacher. That's part of the advocacy, because you know that your child is coming to be with this person from maybe 8 a.m. till 3 or 4. So you want the teacher to understand the special needs of your child. So you bond with the teacher, you find out what you can do at home to buttress what the teacher is doing, create awareness in the school, work with the head teacher, the class teacher, bring somebody into the school, partner with the school, bring somebody into the school to come and speak to the school, maybe during PTA meetings and things like that. So advocacy through awareness in your child's school, a good relationship with the teacher, and then also, what can I do? Ask the teacher, what do I need to do to support whatever she taught in school on a daily basis?
Thank you. We've already answered some of the other questions. But I want to ask this one. What are some of the ways to involve the siblings, the brothers and sisters of the child with special needs? There's a tendency, to also focus on the child with the special needs, and the siblings don't understand, how do you manage, the dynamics, and how do you also help them understand what is going on with their brother or their sister, and how can they also support?
Um, it is so important to get the buy-in and carry along the siblings, because the home front is meant to be the place where the child is most comfortable, most loved, and of course, the siblings and the parents spend a long time with the child. So again, there should be awareness. You need to teach the older siblings. For example, let's say we have a special needs child who throws tantrums, for example. You could involve the older child. Maybe when there is a tantrum, we come together and just ask and say, hello, David. Hello, David. Uh, do you know why Patricia is throwing tantrums? What is happening? What did she tell you? What does she want? Involve the child in attending to the needs of that special needs child. Whatever the sibling can support you to do to help the child, you should involve them in caring for this special needs child. But like I said, they also need to know what is the problem, what are the expected challenges, that they are going to observe with their sibling, and you just encourage them to help. For example, if a mother has a special needs child that has walking challenges, you can involve the sibling in supporting the child to walk. So engage them, involve them in the needs, day-to-day daily living activities of the child, so that they get used to supporting maybe their sister or their brother, but they also need in a child-friendly language, they need to understand that uh, this person needs a little extra support in the home. So you involve them with the care for that child.
Yes, so it's very important to involve them. And I would also add that in as much as a lot of attention will be given to the child with special needs, also find time, take out time with your other
With the
children,
other children,
because it's also
yes.
important that they don't get lost in,
And they don't feel left out.
and yeah, they
That
don't feel
mommy
left
is
out.
only talking about
Yes.
or caring for a particular child.
Yeah,
Yes.
so find time to take them out, and give them some time also away from the responsibility of
Yes.
taking care of someone. Okay, so let's move to some, I think this is the final part of the interview. Some common mistakes and how to move forward. In your experience, what are some common mistakes parents make when navigating special needs education?
Mm. Not even just education, parenting, navigating parenting a child with special needs. Now, one of the things, the common things that parents, especially in Nigeria, is this denial that we have talked about. The longer a parent is in denial, the longer that child is left in a world of struggle all alone. So let's know that for as long as I'm saying there's nothing wrong with my child, I'm actually leaving my child alone in a world of struggle, in a world where that child is alone and confused. So it doesn't actually help. And then we need to get over the stigma. What will they say? What will they do? The first thing you need to know in our world today, actually, you are not alone. There are so many families who have children with special needs, and you can connect with them and hear their stories. There are a lot of stories online, testimonies of parents who have special needs children and how they supported them and eventually had victory over the challenge. So we need to come to terms with the stigma and get over it as well, because stigma will not allow you to reach out for help. In Nigeria, we have some parents who go and hide the child. That is, I mean, I can only term that as child abuse. Some parents hide the child. We've had cases of parents who just take that child to the village and abandon the child, maybe with a great grandfather in the village, because they are embarrassed and also they feel
And they'll be
that there
giving the
is no
child
hope. Yeah. They feel there is no help. They feel there is no hope, which is not true. That's a misconception. So those are the common errors. And another one, as an educator, we find that parents also, they just keep changing the school. And the school and the teachers are blamed. Oh, that school, they don't understand my child, or that school, their standard is so poor. Imagine my child has been there for a whole year and my child cannot even write A, or my child cannot even say A. And then, so we have parents who have changed their child's school maybe like 3-4 times. Know that, especially for an autistic child, every new school is a horrible experience for the child. They are meeting new teachers, new friends, new classroom environment. All these things, sometimes it's for them is traumatic. It gives them a lot of, too much challenge to cope with. So changing your child's school, um, taking the child to the village, locking the child up, being in denial, all these things, they work, negatively for the child. So instead of locking up, reach out for help, reach out for support as a parent. Let's connect you with people who have success stories so that there is hope. There is actually a lot of hope. Awareness has increased tremendously in Nigeria today, and we collaboration with Patrick Speech. Patrick Speech is doing amazing work, getting government attention, for special needs, really advocating, and the government is beginning to respond. Yeah, we're not there yet, but there is a lot of hope and a lot of support out there now.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to, just like you said, don't hide your child or restrict the child just because he has, one special need. Personally, I'll say, like, from my own experience, I even think that sometimes exposing the child to the things that they seemingly don't like,
Mm.
for example, I use my son for example. So when we started putting him in the bath
Mm.
with water, the way children will play in the bath,
Mm.
he will not sit in the water. Like, no
Mhm.
matter no matter what, he will not sit inside. He will prefer to stand and be playing with the toys, but he
Mm.
just didn't like the water.
Mm.
But I just kept, putting him there with his sister. His sister, she was fine. She could swim. She would be swimming. But we just kept putting him there. And with time, he started to get more and more,
Used to it.
comfortable. And
Mm.
before we knew it, on his own, he started sitting, in the
In the
water.
water.
And I think it was yesterday or
He
when,
actually requested for it.
he requested for it. And not just that, he was lying down in the
In the
water and
water.
even putting his face,
Down.
in the water, pretending to swim. I had to tell his dad, I need to teach him how to hold his breath, on that water. So I think sometimes, just the fact that your child reacts a certain way to something doesn't mean that, there's no hope at all there.
Mm. You
Just
don't give up.
don't give up, keep exposing the child to that thing. It might not work for all of their issues. For some issues, it's just a complete no-no. They won't like
They
it.
don't like
But
it.
there's no way to find out except you try.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
expose them
Mm.
and see how, sometimes they will get better at it, and sometimes you might just be like, okay, this is not my thing at all.
Yes. Yes.
So
There's
that's,
always also therapists always advise, sometimes parents will tell us it's as if everything is wrong with my child. That isn't quite true. It might take a little more patience and perseverance, but you will always you will be able to identify one or two things that a child loves doing, and you can leverage on any fun thing that the child likes and use that to get the child to do other things. So study your child. What are the things, activities? It could be coloring, it could be singing, it could be dancing for another child, it could be, there are some children that just love splashing. It could be splashing in a water tray. Anything that is of interest to the child, you can leverage on that and use it to attract the child to do several other things.
yeah, very important. And take your child out.
Oh,
Go
for
outside,
special
play
needs children,
outside.
contact with nature is in itself therapeutic. They need to go to the park, let them touch the grass. I advise, I said, let him remove
So,
his shoes.
something came to,
Let him touch the grass.
something came to my mind now. It's not those parks that government has put in roundabouts that they
Ah.
lock.
No. A park we can actually enter, go on a slide, just have fun in the open air, not just, being locked up in one apartment is also can have adverse effects. So let the child step outside. It might not be a crowded place because some children living with autism might not be able to cope with that. So look for a time when very few people are there and you can just sit with your child and enjoy nature. So park outings are excellent for children.
Yes. So, on a final note, this is the last question. What advice would you give to a mother, a father, parents, guardians who feel overwhelmed by their child's special needs? We know that it's not easy. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of emotional strength, to take care of someone someone with special needs or any form of disability at that. So what, just a word of encouragement to parents of the experiencing that?
The first thing I would like to say is that you are not alone. You know, sometimes when we get overwhelmed, we feel, oh, why me in the whole wide world? Well, you are not alone. And there is hope, there is help. You just have to look for help that is suitable for your child. You have to look for what will work. And if you look well enough, if you persevere, you are actually going to find, it could be certain activities, it could be a certain place that your child is, you know, feeling comfortable with, or a particular person. So if you search hard enough, you are going to find help for your child. So there is hope, there is help, and it also helps. You know, when you get online, you can always hear, you know, the stories of other people who have had children living with special needs, and the child has grown and they've been able to overcome those challenges. The child has been able to thrive regardless of, you know, whether it is being autistic or ADHD. So there is hope, there is help. You are the best advocate for your child. Don't give up and feel, oh, there's nothing. You are the best. Nobody can love your child more than you do. So if you give up on your child, you are giving the whole world license to give up on that child. And I would like to, you know, round up with a testimony of my boss, Mrs. Akonde, the founder of Patrick Speech and Language Center. We just had a massive celebration uh, last week, about 10 days ago, when her child, her son, graduated. He got his PhD, you know, and he started work. This is somebody diagnosed with autism. But Mrs. Akonde proved that with a lot of love, with a lot of awareness, with support, with time, you know, helping a child living with a disability is going to take your time. It's going to take attention. And of course, because there is no government support, it might be a little bit expensive. But I'm assuring you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You are not alone. And that child, with your support, is going to thrive. That child is going to make it in life. So be encouraged.
Be encouraged.
Yes, there
All
is hope.
right. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. If
My
you have
pleasure.
any questions, drop it in the comment section. And if we have enough questions, you know, we can have another session. Also, if you would like to engage the services of a therapist, also drop that in the comment section and I would send you more details about that. It's obvious that, I mean, to be a caregiver of someone with special needs, even an educator or a therapist, it has to be a passion. It has to be a calling for you, because it requires a lot of care, a lot of
Patience,
patience,
understanding,
understanding. And if you are just picking up, you know, these roles out of, okay, let me just, you
or to
won't,
make
or to
money. If
make
you want to
money.
make money,
Yeah, if you just want to do it to make money, then you won't last, because you'll be tried and tested. So it requires a lot of commitments. You know,
yes,
you have to, and the children, a lot of them thrive on just care and affection before
yes.
we even start talking about milestones and education and, you know, all of that. So a lot of care and affection is involved. So that brings us to the end of this video. Like I said, if you have any questions, inquiries, drop in the comment section and I would respond to them. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, And we will see you in my next video.
Mm.
Hopefully maybe with another guest. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye bye.
Bye.